Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Batman vs. Predator 3. 2 more alien trophy hunters have landed in Gotham, their grim trademarks all too familiar to Batman, when they kill and decapitate 4 gang members. Though no explanation why he hasn't told Robin yet, who knows something's up. Maybe he wants to surprise him for his birthday. More surprised is Mr. Freeze, who just finished the mother of all heists when those Preds track him down and kill his henchmen. More loot for Victor, if he survives. This issue's cover sees one of the Predators hanging on the ledge of a clock tower, with Batman apparently about to punch him when a cloaked enemy drops down with a spear. I told them not to try and remake Back to the Future, but did they listen? We pick up where we left off, with a splash page of Freeze backed up against the freezer door, and much like the first issue, narration from a little further ahead in the story. What we got is your good news, bad news deal here. Bad news, Mr. Freeze needs to change his shorts. Good news, he's got plenty of money to buy new ones. Also, nice detail of the steam subtly rising from the spots of blood. Nice, if a bit garish. Anyway, another splash page shows the Preds in the process of taking their trophies, as narration points out they were all crooks since childhood and their stolen money was largely left behind. That's the good news. The bad news? I actually couldn't save 15% by switching to Geico. That lizard lied to me! The Freeze goons ended up just like the 8-Ball gang members last issue, killed by unusual weapons, then relieved of their heads and spines. One Predator looks at Freeze and barely distinguishes him from his surroundings, even as he, apparently, changes the spectrum in his helmet from blueberry to lime to black licorice. The 2 hunters leave the doctor unharmed, maybe thinking he was a human-shaped decal on the freezer door or something. Later, police investigate the scene, where Montoya wonders if perhaps the Iceman wanted all the loot for himself. Bullock says that, nutty as he is, dismemberment isn't quite Freeze's style, and he didn't take any of the cash. So not only do they remain without a lead on these new killings, they don't know why Freeze was spared. But hey, they got out of the heat for a while, unlike Victor here, making his escape from the sewers. Victor Freeze crawled through a river of foulness I can't even imagine, and came out sweaty and melted on the other side. Batman is in Jim Gordon's office, as his friend bemoans the 100-degree weather lately, saying that crime and dead bodies tend to rise along with the temperature. Feeling a little dramatic tonight, Commissioner? You've got some nerve talking dramatics. Hey, I didn't take 6 years of stage acting for nothing. Bats plays it vague, saying they both know who's behind the brutal killings lately. As a committed cop, part of Jim wants to know the answers, but now he'd rather not know the questions. And it's about that point Batman has disappeared, because he's gone to the roof confronting Robin, who was listening in. He feels it's his fault for telling the boy wonder to stay outside, but not clarifying he shouldn't spy. But he's not going to admit it's his fault that Gordon didn't realize he left and is currently talking to no one back in his office. The capes swing away, Tim saying Bruce isn't being honest with him. Batman says that the murders are related to 2 previous cases not found in his files, so maybe he keeps that information under his mattress or something? While saying the killer is more dangerous than any other he's faced, he's being truthful when he says he doesn't know who it is, which doesn't exactly clear things up for the boy. Bats isn't prepared to say any more, though admits to needing his sidekick on the case until they find Freeze. Super strong and resilient alien trophy hunters with advanced weapons technology. There, I did it for you, Wayne. That'll be $3 million. What, I ripped the bandage off for him, and he can afford my fee. Though the scene does kind of feel like it has Obi-Wan Kenobi semantics at play. Batman truly doesn't know who the killer is, from a certain point of view. An enthusiastic ice cream truck driver is ready for another day of profitable heatwave work when he finds several boxes of his stock melting outside his vehicle. He opens the back, only to be grabbed by Mr. Freeze. He wants first dibs on Cherry Berry Blast Pops. They're always out by the time they get to his neighborhood. This is a matter of life or death, specifically Victor's, so he coerces the driver to speed through the streets to a specific location, not stopping for any of the kids looking for frozen refreshment.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Bruce is looking over blueprints for an attack/suppression helicopter, thinking he could use it more proactively, convince the latest visitor to leave before killing again. By using the armed helicopter to deliver a handwritten note saying, "Please stop murdering people and leave the planet forever"? We have discussed this before. The addition of aircraft to your fleet of vehicles is infeasible. Sometimes a butler has to put his foot down and say no, or else his insanely rich vigilante boss just ends up being spoiled rotten. Kinda weird he'd phrase it like that, as if the bat plane has never been a thing, but moving on. Bruce intends to borrow a prototype of the AH-99 Jaeger built by his own company for police use, kept in a warehouse in Bristol, and will need Alfred's acting chops, which is probably why he's dressed like he's heading for his first day at UPS. He asks if there's any way to deter the creatures from ever returning again, and Wayne points out that they consider humans to be sport, and each one's defeat has apparently been seen as a challenge to yet another. As we go to the Preds in their bridge tower lair, one flashes back to the defeat of Spanish conquistadors, and the subsequent trophy was a locket or medallion of some kind. This, while Batman continues that the aliens have a code of honor, testing themselves against what they seem as the most dangerous and challenging prey, their culture about combat and courting death, fashion surrounding their weapons, and their cinema all-action movies split into two categories, which ones include Arnold Schwarzenegger and which ones don't. Strangely enough, their music is heavily influenced by K-pop. Furthermore, Bruce thinks that the visitors have been stopping by Earth for centuries, because world's greatest detective. Sheesh, at least mention doing some research into historical deaths and remains that fit the Pred's MO, because all this feels like a real stretch pulled out of his cave. If a conclusive victory isn't possible, Bats prefers to be the target of the hunters instead of an innocent, though Robin walks in to interject that none of the victims lately have been innocent people. However, to the Dark Knight, though they may have been robbers and gang members, it's not the kind of justice he tolerates on his turf. Well, there was that boxer in the first crossover. All he did was be boastful after winning a championship. But I guess he can't bring that up because that would entail telling Tim about the danger in the city. Tim is left behind to keep looking for Mr. Freeze's hiding place, while Bruce and Alfred take off for secret helicopter shopping in the subway rocket. Hey, a fast travel vehicle using the subway! Where have I seen that in more recent and much worse comics that acted like it was a revolutionary idea? Turns out, despite being a cartoon now, I can do that too! Happy days, am I right? Pennyworth notes that leaving Tim out like this will make him doubt his abilities, and Bruce finally reveals why he hasn't gone into detail with him about the visitors. It's those very exceptional skills of Tim's that will only make him a target. Drake, meanwhile, is venting to Oracle about being left out, hating all the secrets and sometimes wanting to spill his guts. Like telling me your real name? Say what in the what now? He's been Robin for more than 6 years at this point, our time, and Babs still doesn't know who he is? I guess I must have just forgotten how much Bruce compartmentalized his allies back then. Though I do remember Cass figuring out Batman's identity by herself, so I shouldn't be too shocked. While doing some bat doodles, Barbara suggests that if he's so curious about why this string of killings has Batman on edge, he should run a search on them. You're as devious a net rat as I am. Do you want an overload of cat memes in your email? Because that's how you get an overload of cat memes in your email. At a Wayne Tech hangar, Alfred is procuring the helicopter, successfully tricking... Is that Wayne Knight? Well, given his last name, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that he's in a Batman comic. Maybe he'll talk Alfred's ear off about working with Jerry Seinfeld, or, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The aircraft is loaded into a semi, and Bats praises the butler's performance as he prepares to drive off. But I cannot decide which is more foul, the cigarette or this goatee. I feel attacked. Oracle and Robin find a lot of information, but the former brushes most of it off as conspiracy theory nonsense. Tim notices a match between current-day homicides and others around the world, remembering Batman talking about there being a singular killer, someone professional, amoral, and able to move about unseen. We then go to Catwoman breaking into a building when she's targeted by the elusive predators, and she sees their targeting lasers. Are they intentionally aiming for the glass, or in the process of moving the lights over to her? Either way, sloppy form given their previous proficiency, no? Anyway, Batman's got the visitors in his sights. Kinda. There's too much interference from the billboard they're on to get a clear visual, but he's detected them from infrared and incandescent scans, so opens fire with rubber ammunition.
rubber bullets. Honest.
Though odd how he uses quotation marks when he mentions their safety rounds, really walking that tenuous line of Batman hating and not using guns or lethal force, and the reality that rubber bullets are technically less lethal, but not completely non-lethal. The old Dark Knight Returns influence, people. The metal in the sign must be causing enough interference that he can't tell that there's two of them, as he chases the Preds with 4,000 rounds a minute down the building as one crashes into a newsstand. While Catwoman takes an attack chopper firing on beverage signs as a good enough reason to call off her theft and head home for the night, we go to a 2-page spread where Bats catches sight of the downed hunter, but it's too crowded for ammunition and needs Alfred to follow in the van. And according to that sign, Chuck Dixon provides fast relief you can trust. Given certain writers at DC in the last decade, I don't doubt it. The target is changing between stealth modes, making it difficult to keep a lock, so Bruce intends to mark it. As it leaps toward a movie theater while two guys are hopping on a bus, I assume to have doctors take a look at their unnaturally gray skin, the Predator is hit with an epoxy paint with a hint of radium for flavor, so there'll be no losing sight of him. This is the exact reason Bruce is banned from all paintball competitions. He chases the Pred into a blind alley, with no way out except through Batman. The issue ends with his declaration that he won't let the target get away, as the other hunter has decloaked and descends on his armed aircraft. The one time you don't want someone to get to the chopper! The story has progressed pretty well, showing the Predator still active, still elusive, but so far dealing with common crooks, likely because, as previously stated, crime amps up during the summer heat, and they're looking for targets. Batman's reasoning for not informing Tim on the threat is understandable to a point. It's clear he's plenty curious about what's going on and frustrated about being left out of the loop. But even if Bruce wants to preoccupy him with tracking Freeze in hopes that he'll stay off the hunter's radar, it would still be better to tell him more about the threat. Not only would this possibly alleviate some of Tim's tension, he could be better prepared in laying low, and in the event that the unexpected but let's face it inevitable happens and he has to get involved. In some iterations, Bruce doesn't necessarily want his sidekicks to be just like him, but maybe that super prepared trait wouldn't be such a bad thing to mimic right now. Tune in next week to see if facing two Predators makes Batman rethink the I have to tackle every threat myself mentality. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.